All right, thank you. All right, 7 o'clock. Welcome, everybody. Town of Bowling Green Town Council meeting for Thursday, August 4th, 2022. I'd like to call it to order. We have a quorum. Everybody's here. The attorney is supposedly en route. I haven't seen nothing from her. But if I can get everybody to stand and face the flag and help me pledge of allegiance. Okay. Item number 1 is public hearing for the notice of intent to apply for funding through the USDA for improvements of the town of Bowling Green sanitary sewer system. Allison, turn it over to you. Where'd she run to? I figured she'd be back. Okay. Once we hear something from her, then we'll open up public comments. And here comes Andrea. You're okay. You got to say your pledge of allegiance, please, before you sit down. We're waiting on Allison to come back.
We were talking swimming. Very important.
Josh, something you want to say about this water sewer project? I didn't see you sitting there. I'll let you get on up there.
I'll just give a brief overview real quick before Allison gets back. So engineering report was in, trying to think what month it was. It was for 2 months. Dan from Dewberry Engineering came and presented, explained the project, and was in the packet. So I didn't want to re-put it back in there because it's 100 and some pages. But just a brief overview. The plant has not received any significant upgrades since 1991, so it's past its useful life of about 30 years. Improvements at the wastewater plant would bring it up to date. Wouldn't need, upgrades for another, 20, 30 years, but would include electrical upgrades, new cloth disc filters, a new UV disinfection, rehabbing the 2 clarifier units, rehabbing the oxidation ditch, and a new centrifuge for solids handling. So a lot of the concrete structures are, sound. They're good. They wouldn't need to be, completely torn down. It's just the mechanical equipment within those basins that would need to be redone. And then outside, like throughout town, which is this collection system, there is 10,520 feet of concrete sewer main that needs replacing. We would try to rehab. There's 42 brick and mortar manholes that we would try to save money and rehab. If they're too far gone, we would have to replace those. We would install 4 generators at the 4 lift stations that currently do not have them. And then we would add security fencing to the 3 lift stations that do not have them to protect the generator and the equipment that's there. But that's a brief overview, and then I will let Allison kind of explain the financial side of it a little bit.
Josh, can I just ask you a question?
Mhm.
This is just to apply. It's not undertaking a commitment on the part of the town at this time, right?
No, so it's not a commitment. You just have to have a public hearing for your notice to intent to apply for financial funding.
Thank you.
And then, like I said, Allison will go over more of
Yeah.
that part. But if there's any questions, feel free to.
Anybody got any questions for Josh while he's standing there?
I know that I had one in the past in regards to the like standards that we had for the treatment,
Mhm.
and I think I may have had some misinformation, but to my understanding, like how like the building code works, if you make an improvement, you have to meet certain standards at that point. So my question in a previous meeting was, we are currently treating with X amount of chemicals, and if we upgrade and do this, um, I guess the answer I'd gotten is that we wouldn't have to come up to like the new standard because to my knowledge, we're not there because we're grandfathered in because the plant hasn't had an upgrade, like you said, since 91.
Yeah, so unless we increase the capacity, so right now our current capacity is 250,000 gallons a day. If we were upgrading and increasing that capacity, then we would have a total nitrogen, total phosphorus limit. However, since we're not increasing the capacity, we're just upgrading slash replacing the equipment that's there. We won't have to, those limits won't be there. Nothing will change on the permit. It'll still be the same limits that we have now.
So the governing body from the state that's over that will not ask us to increase the chemical limit or meet newer standards that the state has set forth with this project, though. Like that's where I mean, to me, it's a big project, and I feel like we may be required. But that you're saying is just capacity only.
Yeah, that was part of this process.
Okay.
It went through the USDA, and they, go through DEQ and all that. And that's part of the reason why we didn't increase the capacity because one, when we looked at it, we didn't need it. And two, if we went to an increased capacity, we would have those total nitrogen, total phosphorus limits.
Okay. And my recall of that was it was roughly around 16 to 17 million dollars on that project that the engineering firm had placed in that informational packet. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that's been revised.
Okay. Understood.
And I'll let Allison go over that, but it has increased. However, we have been working with the USDA, and I guess once Allison sits down, I'll see if she wants to go over that part of it, or I can go over. So we have been working with the USDA. The project did increase in cost, roughly an additional $5 million to $21 million, or just under 21 million. However, when talking with the USDA, they're going to give, a 75% grant, which is unheard of. So we would receive roughly 15 million in grant money. Then we would have a $5 million loan. And then the only issue is, how to pay for that loan. And I guess I'll let Allison take over from there.
So in talking to USDA, there were some suggestions, and one would be to take $200,000 a year out of the general fund. Presently, you don't have $200,000, so it would mean raising taxes. The other is to increase the sewer rates. And so that is a unfortunate thing to tell you, but it is a 75% grant, so that's why we're here tonight to discuss it.
All right, thank you, Josh. Appreciate it. Allison, have you said everything you wanted to say before I open up public hearing?
Yes.
All right, at this time, I open the floor up for people in the audience. If you have anything to say or say against this project, or not the project, but the trying to obtain funding, please come forward, state your name and address. Yes, yeah, that's all this is right now, just the project. We'll have public comments here in a couple minutes. So nobody? You're not at the podium, ma'am.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I appreciate Bonnie Cannon, Frank Main Street.
Mike,
Probably a little high. Is that okay? I appreciate being able to stand here tonight before you, and I have some comments to make about this situation with this public hearing for the USDA funding for sewer upgrades. First of all, I have the June minutes in front of me. Yes, make sure I write June 2nd minutes town council meeting that I printed myself. And down here under scheduled public hearing for USDA funding for sewer upgrades. I'm skipping on down here and it says council and staff discuss the following. And I very much emphasize these 3 comments that I'm going to read from y'all's minutes. Concern with the USDA style funding assistance. Under no obligation to move forward with project. I like that one. Concern of extra expense impacts to residents. I like that statement. And I would like to know why you would even consider going this route. I have not seen many municipalities go this route and do this with the USDA. It costs taxpayers a lot of money. You just heard Allison a minute ago. And also, Mr. Mayor, if you want me to say this under delegations, I will, but I have a newspaper article that relates to grants for water sewer projects. Can I mention it now? You'd rather me wait till comments?
What was it for? No, it's nothing to do with this. I'd rather you just,
Well, it relates
Grant
to help
go
fund
ahead.
local water sewer projects.
go ahead, I'll allow it. Go ahead.
Okay, that's why I asked you first. This is a Freelance Star dated Wednesday, July 27th, right on the front page. I read the paper. The title of it, Grants to Help Fund Local Water Projects. This is free money too from the state, by the way. Let me go back up. Virginia's 2-year budget includes almost $69 million to support local water, wastewater sewer projects, and the lion's share of funds will head to the Fredericksburg region. The city is getting $27 million. King George County is getting $16 million, and the town of Quantico will receive $17 million. This money is part of $350 billion allocated to state and local governments through the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. Maybe you know something about that. My question is, did y'all look into this?
I'll answer that. The USDA will give us 15 million to do this project, allowing us to have to pay 5 million back. So that's all I'm gonna say right now. So yes, every
Of
project
this.
we do,
But
trust
this is
me,
free money.
every project we do, we go through the USDA for funding, to get grants to pay for this. If not, we couldn't afford the first one. So
Yeah,
we get
we are
plenty of
applying for
support,
those,
trust me.
Bonnie.
We look after the taxpayers' money as hard as we can before we have to put it out. So we try to get every free nickel and dime that the governments will give.
I agree with you. Yes, I think that's the right path. But I also disagree with you going the USDA route because it's going to cost taxpayers a lot of money. Because I don't
Okay.
think they should dictate you what to do. For example, you got to raise our sewer rates, I guess, right? We've heard you got to raise it according to what they're telling you. Am I wrong? You got to do something they're
All right.
directing you to do.
Thank you,
I
Bonnie.
don't like that.
Thank you,
Thank you very
Bonnie.
much.
Have a good day. Anybody else?
Yeah, I just want to concur a little bit with Bonnie in saying that there are,
Yeah, public's still on.
oh, I can't say, oh, sorry.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
No, that's all right. I'll wait. Thank you.
All right, seeing none, hearing none, I close public comments. If council would like to do some discussing among themselves here on this project.
Okay, I'll try again.
Now-
Yeah, we do. We always, when we're talking about something this big, we do apply for and the grants come from the top and they filter on down into the states and the states, give it to the counties, whoever applies. The problem with this that I have, I kind of feel like we've lumped a lot into this. And Bonnie, what I was going to tell you is yes, that there are always things when we apply for a grant not just that they want us to pay it back, but they want to make sure we can sustain and we're going to be able to afford to pay back our part on this. This particular one that Josh is presenting tonight, I believe they have said we will give you a grant for 75% of this. But when you're talking millions and millions of dollars, what does it still look like that we're going to be absorbing? And that's the question that I think right now I don't have answers for. And we need to do a lot more looking into what is it that we would really use this for before personally I would vote to even think about spending money on this project. So I need to see more data.
Go ahead.
May I offer something for Ms. Cannon?
Go ahead.
We have had issues with the Department of Environmental Quality in the past, and I've attended some of those hearings where we were found to be in violation. And when you have old equipment, not only do you run the risk of being in violation, but you also run the risk of it breaking and not being able to find parts. And it's kind of like having an old car, you know, you limp along and limp along and limp along as long as you can, but then you have to make a decision whether it makes sense to keep investing in that old equipment and old technology. And there are not only repair costs to consider in terms of our current system, but the potential for fines from DEQ in the future, as well as increased personnel costs, because with some of the newer technology, you can automate things, and there isn't as much of a personnel cost associated with it. So.
Go ahead, Arthur.
I guess my comment in regards to this topic is, I mean, I understand sewer's important, but I also think that we're facing another potential situation here in the town, and that's the other side of that, which is water. So for me, there's going to be whichever method we find to work towards solving this water situation / crisis, however you want to put that, there's going to be some type of funding that's going to be related to mitigating that problem. So for me right now, there's, and it doesn't get into the capacity, and I understand that, but we have a contract that's pre-existing with Carolina to support X amount of gallons of their sewer capacity. So if we needed more, that's something that we could revisit with the county to see if they could place that back onto their system. So that may free up capacity in the future once we figure out the water. But for me, this document was just handed out, and I do want to get with Allison on it, but I think this has to deal with the water aspect of that, if I'm.
Yeah, he's gonna speak.
Oh, okay, I understand. So
Number two.
for me, that's where I'm sitting, so the rest of the council knows that's kind of my priority. I think there's going to be some type of funding tied with this regional effort between King George, Carolina, and Port Royal that we should look into for the surface water initiative to withdraw that out the Rappahannock. And Mr. Mayor, I mean, it was before my time, but wasn't the prior USDA grant that we currently have, where we had the Kevlik contractor in here, wasn't that with some line replacement down Milford and Main Street? So,
Yeah.
I mean, we took a step just so some of the public is aware to address that, and that was before I was on council myself, but that project was placed in. So granted, we can't do it all at one time because it is a costly effort.
And the USDA money does come with strings. You know, you have to do it their way. What's attractive, though, is the interest rate.
What's on this one, and I understand that it's, I mean, another thing is that it's probably an opportunity that doesn't come across a lot, where they're willing to give 75%. We're looking at roughly $240, $250 per household in the town, but then you've got to multiply that over. That was for a 20-year grant that I did. If we had to pay that back, so $5 million for 240 months, you're looking at about $250 per household. So
This is a,
And
it's a 40-year loan, and it is a 2% interest rate.
yeah, you can thank the feds for that. Josh, since Andrea did bring up a good point, if we update the system, how does it respect to our manpowers of babysitting it?
I mean, at that time, depending on what you put in, we would have to talk with DEQ to see about reducing hours and things like that.
Well, you should have monitoring systems that are remote though, right? If that's part of what,
That is part of it.
Yeah.
And then we would talk with DEQ and, you know, hopefully kind of reduce the amount of hours that we need to actually man the plant. And then, you know, as employees leave, then you would be able to discuss like not filling that position or, you know, go or things like that. But we would have to have that technology first and then discuss it with DEQ as far as like, we have this, you know, capacity to monitor the plant from home, you know, how many hours do we have to have staffed? And usually what they'll say is, you know, Monday through Friday, be there 8 hours. And then on the weekends, you come in, you know, run your test and, you know, could turn into like a 4-hour shift where, you know, so that reduces it. Cause right now it's 7 days a week, 10 hours a day. So if it gets reduced, then you're saving a lot of, you know, time and everything there. And to kind of go for Bonnie, usually the USDA, it's a 70% loan, 30% grant, is typically what it's always been. And like I said, this time they're also getting that American Rescue Plan money. They're getting all that, you know, COVID money. And that's why they're able to offer, you know, 75%. I definitely understand the concerns as far as like paying for it and everything. And yes, the lines were done on Milford and Maury, and that was an emergency situation. It collapsed, pump and haul. And we've cameraed the lines because we've had, you know, issues here, you know, the 2 years that I've been here. And when they've cameraed it and put the little robot in there, there's chunks of concrete, there's mud. They were on Main Street, close to the hardware store, and they went in and the robot couldn't go any further because there was concrete and mud, you know, blocking it. So my fear is it's not if it's going to happen, it's just when it's going to collapse, and then we're going to be in an emergency instead of having the funding in place and things like that. And as Andrea mentioned, DEQ has mentioned in the past, as far as like losing solids, the UV light's not working, the filter's not working, things like that. And so that's where we started. So if they come back and, you know, things are still, you know, patched together, or, you know, you're not working towards something to improve, they're going to say, okay, well, when your permit's up, we're going to put these, you know, special considerations and things in place, and then, which could end up, you know, costing you more money to fix things or, you know, do things. So that was part of the other reason for the project, is to kind of, you know, show them that we're working towards something and, you know, hopefully continue to work towards it. And then they kind of give us a little bit of a break and say, hey, they're working towards it. However, if we don't work towards it, then they're going to kind of come in and say, well, you need to do it. So.
Josh, I guess for me, I had some questions. You said we haven't updated anything in the plant since 1991.
Significantly, yes.
Yeah, because I know, I mean, I've only been on council 3 years, but when Reese was here, that place was falling apart. And I know that we've spent tons of money on the plant.
Yeah. 2015, they put in a new bar screen, and that's it. They've done work to the oxidation ditch, like just fixing to make sure the like gear drives that are there are working. And I believe each time it was in $20,000, $25,000 range. This will completely fix it. Like Andrea said, instead of just patching it and patching it and patching it, you go ahead and instead of spending the money to patch it, you just replace it, and then you're no longer patching it and you're saving that money. And then that money can be directed towards paying back that loan and, you know, saving for the future. And that's what we're trying to, you know, work towards, is having everything fixed and then taking the money that we're not using to pay off the loan and save for the future at the same time.
So I guess I'm going back to this, what Andrea said. This proposal tonight is to ask them to set aside money for us to think about or because I guess that's where I'm a little confused,
It's for us to apply.
to apply.
No commitment.
And when you're applying, though, it sounds like you're applying for work on the water treatment plant, you're applying for work on our sewer lines, and what else? Is that correct?
Yeah, so it's the wastewater treatment plant itself and then the collection system.
And I guess I'm questioning, how do we know what we're asking for? I mean, what are you going off of for this figure that you're coming up with and they're coming up with?
The cost estimate.
Yeah.
So Dewberry Engineering did the preliminary engineering report, and that's where they got the cost for the project from. So they looked at all the data that we have as far as, how old the lines are, when they were replaced. They looked at, when the equipment was replaced, things like that.
So you're telling me that it includes all of the deficits that they saw in this, is that correct? That this figure is, you took what their proposals were of what we needed,
Yes.
and we have, I guess I still don't understand how is it that you came up with this price by just a couple years ago when I'm sorry, I don't mean to be
I may
ignorant
be
here,
able
but
to
I don't
add,
understand.
Josh had presented a proposal maybe about 4 or 5 months ago in there, and it was like $16 million. I know one part was like a SCADA system upgrade for the plant, which would be the automation. Some of it was other things that he identified, and it was in there. It was about a 100-page engineering study, is how they went through and identified what the price point would be, and then they
Right.
placed in there.
I guess it would have
every
been helpful to
upgrade.
have that here tonight. But I guess the upgrade with it automated, is that just something that, I know we all want automation in our life where we don't have to be there to make something work. What would that alone, tell me what that alone would cost?
So the SCADA part of it was around 300,000, 200 to 300,000 to add that in.
I don't know if this helps or not, but with the modernization of the system, it's going to be able to, can you hear me? No. With the modernization, it not only helps with like remote technology, but it also helps with the amount of things that you can process. And so, for example, now I would expect that you have more personnel demands when it rains because you've got more water going through the system.
Mhm.
And when it's not operating efficiently, it takes longer to get it through. And I mean, my daughter works at the Ashland Sewer Treatment Plant, so this is why I know so much. She has had, one time she had to work 36 hours recently just to stay there and to keep monitoring and to keep things flowing through to the greatest extent possible. So, it's modernization, it's technology, but it also allows for some growth because if the town continues to grow, we're going to have more users for that system.
I guess, well, it's not increasing the capacity, so we don't get any more treatment purposes, so that wouldn't.
Yeah, but we're nowhere near.
What I mean is it's more efficient. I didn't really
Okay.
mean, yeah.
Yeah, what she's saying is like, so like with her daughter having to stay there, we wouldn't have to stay there because I could log into the laptop and see that it's running okay, or if it's not, then you could go out. Like you wouldn't have to sit there and manually watch it. And then also if like, she's saying the town, if it does grow like, 30, 40 years from now, the system would already be in place for you to add all those things on. But
I guess, two questions I have. So out of what we prior did a couple years ago with the USDA grant, like let's say, was that 10% of our sewer lines in the town that we upgraded, or was it 20? And then, so seeing that was project A, let's label this project B, how much percentage-wise would this replace of the town sewer system? So would we be at almost 100%, or would we be at 50? Because what I'm getting at is if we put 20 million into this, now, and then we've already done 4 or 5, and then that just gets us to 50% of our sewer system, we're still going to have a problem that we got to face. And then second part of that question is, this is a 40-year loan, so what's the lifespan on it? And in 40 years from now, are we going to have to do this all over again? And it's just a reoccurring cycle.
So with PVC pipe, typically the lifespan is 40 to 50 years. You can get more out of it if you're maintaining it, cleaning it out. This project will replace everything that has not already been done. I know certain sections of town have been replaced at different times, like South Main. On South Main from the light at Chase and Main down, South Main was done. Milford Moore have been done. I believe Dorsey's been done. But this will replace everything that hasn't been done.
And I guess what about the town citizens that are currently not on the sewer system but are town residents? How is that going to impact them in the future?
If they're near a sewer line and they would like to pay the connection fee and hook in, they can. But if there's no sewer line, then unfortunately they still couldn't hook in.
But if the infrastructure is not in place, well, what I'm getting at is we've got current citizens that are in positions in the town that don't have sewer lines in their area.
So then that would be an expansion, and that would be something separate that you would have to discuss.
Okay.
But anybody that is not on sewer has a sewer line there would be able to connect.
And I'd also like to bring up the point that this is one of the problems with the growth that is being talked about. Because if the lines are only, if the PVC lasts for 40 to 50 years and your loan is for 40 years, you're going to have to turn right around and then apply for a new loan for new lines as soon as you pay this off. So the cost of replacing lines, and there'll be a lot of different extensions of lines. So 40 years from now, you may see a lot more lines that will need to be replaced into areas that are not, that are currently not served.
I had 2 questions for you, Josh. Can they divide it up? Can we do it 2 different projects, like just one for the sewer plant, and then maybe later on look at the lines?
So
Also, too, is this an updated number with all the inflation rate and petroleum and everything going up, or?
so the updated number was around $5 million more. So if we got a 75% grant, it would be around 15 million in a grant and then 5 million on a loan. As far as breaking it apart, we asked the USDA. However, if we were to break it apart, then we would have to withdraw the application and then reapply at another time.
There is more money. Starting October 1st is the beginning of the next year. And so if you don't do this, it may not be a 75% grant. It probably won't. Our USDA representative said this is the first time she's ever seen this in 34 years she's been working for USDA. But if you want to break it apart and do it more slowly, then she said there absolutely is more money. October 1st, she herself, after evaluating this, has said now to us that she's very concerned about the town being able to pay this back. So again, decision would have to be made to somehow find the money by increasing taxes or increasing the cost of sewer.
What is, all right, if council agrees to apply for this tonight, we apply for it. What is the process after that? How long do we have to where we have time to work on it to figure out where the money is coming from? Like Josh says, we will have money coming back in from repairs that we don't have to do no more. So that's pretty good money going to the side, because I know we spent a lot.
She said that you would need to increase the rates or start moving the money to the project from the general fund
Right.
by 2026.
Okay.
Do we spend $200,000 a year on repairs?
What do we do with water and sewer? I know the sewer is not a lot. What is the sewer, 8?
I think it's 89,000.
Yeah, we
is
don't spend a
budgeted.
lot on it.
But I think the past few years, I know when Reese was here and Melissa was here, they said they went over budget every year for it. And then it just depends on what happens. So, I mean, it's budgeted. However, I mean, you could go over if it requires it.
So I guess what's the number that the citizens are looking at? Is it 6 million? Like, is that safe to say we're looking at $6 million? I'm just trying to get some numbers.
I think
for
it's
everybody.
5 million.
Yeah, when we talked,
So
it was 5.
if we take 6, right, that's, I just done the math, there's about $10.41 per citizen. That's counting that we have 1,200 citizens in the town. You're looking at about $5,000 per household over the course of 480 months, which is 40 years. And then the other aspect of that is if we do that upgrade, the 80, 90,000 in the budget every year is what you're saying? I mean, could the 80 or $90,000 go towards making that payment and we don't have to go up on taxes as much because it's already budgeted out of the general fund towards that? Like, can we repurpose the funds for the sewer lines, like a portion of that?
Allison, didn't you say in the workshop that it would be about $20 a month per household for sewer?
Not everyone has sewer lines, and so I
got it.
think that Mr. Holey was,
That's it.
so I think it's exactly the same in the final calculation as what was being said, because he was basing it on per person, and I was basing it on the approximate number of people that have a sewer service. So it's
Understood.
about, I think both Josh and I got the same number, doing it separately. It's about $20 per
Household.
house.
Household that's on
That
sewer.
has sewer
Per
line.
month, right?
Per month.
Yeah,
So it'd be $40 per bill or $20 per bill. We
It
get
would be
billed
$40
every
per
2
bill.
months.
So it'd be 40.
It would be $40
40
per
per bill.
bill.
all right. Now,
But
Josh,
then you are putting it on to the people, not all the citizens that don't have sewer service. Then you would be putting it on to the people that do have sewer service, rather than raising taxes for everyone.
now, the proposal for $16 million come, 6 months ago? So in
Mhm.
6 months, they've had a $5 million increase. So if we wait on this another 6 months, it could be $10 million.
probably. I mean, it just depends on where
I
it
know the
goes
economy
and-
right now is driving a lot of the
Yeah,
expense, just like it is on everything. But if we go into a deeper recession,
yeah, it'll probably
Well,
increase a lot
That's
more.
true.
And-
And also, there's many cities and towns who have old sewer lines because they can't afford to replace them. So this is a tough decision, we
And-
know.
Has the town in the past ever thought of municipal bonds, selling them? Have they done anything like that?
That is something that the Economic Development Authority can do. The town council can't do that.
And that's not counting any new connections either, as far as like how much you would have to increase it. Because I did kind of speak with her a little bit about that. If there's more connections, obviously the cost would be spread out. So Maury Heights is going to finish building out. Once the water situation is, figured out, if there's more developments, then they'll be able to share the cost as well.
Valerie, can I follow up? You asked about issuing bonds. We could do a bond issuance rather than us issuing it. I thought you meant to raise revenue. We could look at a bond issuance. The interest on that's going to be higher, more than likely.
And that's probably what's going to happen if you pass this one up and you apply for another one. The feds have already raised up the rates. You're talking about raising them up again. So that, USDA is going to go up on their interest rates as well. So we'll be paying another point
if
or more.
the 301 corridor and the building that they're wanting to do out there, And we don't have the water for it, so we're gonna kind of wait and see if we can pull from the county, if they pull from the Rappahannock River. What kind of a timeline are we looking at that would be feasible before we would be able to have water from that if this project went through?
You're going to hear about that. I have a consultant here who, that's what I just handed out as the information on
The only
that.
reason I'm asking them is just, if we were to step forward on this, I mean, we've got those connection fees. If we got that, we know we got that coming in 5 years or 6 years. The $40 or whatever taxes we gotta add to the people, now that could be eliminated once those connection fees could come in because it would start help paying for that. But I'm just trying to find out the time frame. If something was to be able to happen, what are we
Well,
looking at?
I said it about 10 minutes ago, and I just want to make sure that council understands. And I know that we're all going to be hopefully in a better place when this issue arises again. But again, you run more lines. With additional growth, you've got more lines, and then it may not be now, but 40 years from now, you're going to have the exact same problem. You're going to have more lines to have to replace. So this is not an easy issue. There's so many facets to this issue because, yes, they'll be able to help pay for it with their payments if you have more people on the system, but having more people on the system means more lines. So whoever is sitting here 40 years from now, and maybe some don't care, but whoever's sitting here but for the sustainability of this town, we need to make sure that all of this is thought through before we approve anything.
I guess, what are our choices? I mean, I'm very conflicted here with what the answer should be, and I don't know for sure. I'm glad I'm not making this decision alone, but we have to maintain what we have. And I feel like life is a cycle. It's continuously, that's what we do. It's a wheel. And nothing we put in the ground is going to last forever. I haven't seen that technology isn't out there yet. So, I guess I just want to make sure if what we're doing is we're getting the most bang for our buck, and is this the need that we need to rise to now?
So then they have to have a company step in, and Aqua is right there to step in. But there's a bigger problem, which is, well, we'll get into the water issues. I mean, there's a huge problem with everything in the future, for the future of Virginia.
We're talking
and
about
water
sewer,
planning.
this sewer project right now. Get into that, like you
Allison.
said, the water stuff.
I
Go
have
ahead.
two questions. One is, are you looking for a vote from council tonight whether or not to approve the application for this?
There does need to be a vote because tomorrow morning, they have to turn in at least $7 million of the dollars back to the feds if we don't use it.
Okay.
This is the end of the fiscal year and so.
And then how long would it be until they would let us know if we are going to be eligible?
We are eligible. They have found the 15 million for the town. So we have the funds. She has kept those funds for Bowling Green.
So how long?
And there's
until-
no time for anybody else to take them. So it goes back to the feds if Bowling Green chooses not to do this.
So how long would the council have to make a decision on whether or
Well,
not to
this is to approve.
application?
So what I don't know is how much time you have to withdraw. If you approve this tonight, you can still decide not to do the project. But what I don't know is how long you have to withdraw. My guess is it's when they spend the first dime. Do you happen to know?
I'm not sure. I can call tomorrow though. And
Yeah,
I would say at least 90 days we would have. Just,
I'd definitely say that, right?
yeah. So maybe what would be good is if we could have the engineering firm that prepared the PER and maybe a work session to really dig into the meat of some of these issues.
At the same time, the only way to do that is if you pass it tonight, then that gives us time to get better answers on the money and stuff without maybe losing the opportunity. Then we can, if we find we can't do it, we just deny it later. Yeah, yeah, so, you know,
Josh, I had a question. Did Dewberry and Davis have, in their recommendations, I don't remember, did they have a time limit, or did they say this is imperative, or the whole thing needs to be done?
They didn't have any like time limit. It was just the equipment at the plant was past its useful life. So basically, once it goes past its useful life, it's at any time. Don't be surprised if it fails. The sewer lines are already past their useful life. So as a few years ago it collapsed, don't be surprised if it collapsed. Like I said, it's not if it's going to collapse, it's just when it's going to collapse. And my thought is when we start the water main replacement project, the beginning of next year is probably when it's going to start collapsing once you disturb the ground. But I know they're more than happy to come in and speak on it some more, and I can definitely set that up.
Approving it tonight allows you more time for your final decision.
I can't speak for USDA grants, but most of the other times that I've listened to these conversations with grants, going in like that, where you have a decent probability of withdrawing, every other time I've heard that significantly burns bridges for future attempts. I don't know if you can speak to that or not.
So that it wouldn't burn a bridge because the government can't, deny you. I mean, Andrea can speak on that, but they can't deny you just because you withdrew an application. If you apply and you're eligible for, a certain type of grant or a certain type of application or funding, they would be required to.
Yeah, I don't think it's punitive if you decide to turn the money down.
Okay, so it's probably more of a, like there were phone calls, that kind of went back and forth on this one, and they kind of found that extra money for us. I could see that not happening in the future, but as long as we're still eligible for things, that's something.
When the project went up to over 20 million and we had 7 million, and I knew there was just not a way to pay $47,000 a month back. And I said, the town just can't do this with that amount. And she said, no matter what, she would try hard. If we had to go back, I said, can we do less lines? And she said, you can't change the project at this time, but you can come back in October and change the scope and go slower if you want. So there's always that possibility.
Yeah, what I would have, refresh my memory on the PER from before. What I would like to see is an indexing of the lines, like, some sort of, map network kind of thing, and then with basically a grading system on the deterioration of each line, and then how if one were to choose to go this route, how one would phase the replacement of them. That may have been in there. That was, what was that, May that we went over the PER?
Yeah, I think I put it in there in April, and Dewberry came in May to discuss it. I
Yeah,
think.
sounds about right. Okay. Was there a map in there?
So there is a map. It shows all the highlighted lines that are going to be replaced.
Okay.
Unfortunately, they're all in the same condition, which is terrible.
Well, that's one way to do it.
So there's no real way of like ranking it. I guess you would kind of.
You go by flow at that point, I suppose.
Yeah, you would probably do Main Street and probably do some of the ones that are closer to the plant because they're going to receive more flow. But honestly, it's all of them. That the ones that are in the engineering report, they all need to be replaced because they're all in the same condition as far as having the same issues.
Okay, because like the way to approach this outside of this particular we're talking about right now is to have our own plan, work with our public works director and have a plan of going through it, going the CIP route of ranking things and allocating money ourselves like that for the future endeavors. And as you're going along with any CIP type thing, you still go the grant route. But yeah, if you're saying it's just all of them all at once, well, that's a different issue. But even, even going this route, they're still gonna approach it in some sort of phase. Wait, how long were they saying this would take?
So it would take, I think it was a couple of years, it was 2 or 3 years for all of it, because you can do the line work as well as do the plant work at the same time. You would have different
Right.
contractors doing different work. If you broke it out, if you took the project now and broke it out, it would probably be broken into replacing the lines as like, one part, and then, any work done at the lift stations would be another part, and then the plant itself would be broken down into different parts. I don't think they would, they wouldn't break out the line replacement. It would say, hey, these are the lines that need to be replaced. Let's group that all together and get that completely done. Then they would go back and, say, let's do the lift stations, and then, pick parts of the plant and put those together.
Okay. I've got I guess this is a complex question, but I'll use big silly numbers for this one. So say we go with this, and say in the middle of the project, an entire half of the town's system crumbles ahead of schedule. Who's going to fix that? Because
So
you got to get that back up to speed immediately. So would it still be covered under this? We have to go out and get somebody else and then do some sort of reimbursement thing. And because if we do that, then you'd have, if half the system were to suddenly break and we repair it, well, then you don't need to replace it anymore. So where would that money go?
So
I think we would just have to look at that time, whether there's additional funding available or, hopefully something catastrophic like that would not occur.
Well, no, I mean, my question was, if we replace things in the meantime, do we have to go through this, therefore leaving money on the table?
No, we get to decide what we spend this money on. And that's why I was saying, I think it might be good to get the engineers that did the PER, the preliminary engineering report, to come and talk about how all those pieces fit together, what's most likely to fail first, what could wait, kind of to give us the balancing of all the pros and cons.
Is this a line of credit? Like if we spend 90% of it, does the 10% we still have to pay back with interest, or how's that work?
There's usually not a prepayment penalty.
No, I mean, like if inflation were to reverse and this were to cost half as much, then, but we've already been awarded the full amount, do we adjust the amount that we're going to be taking?
Yes, that's my
Okay.
understanding.
Yeah.
In other transactions is that if you end up with too much money, you can give some of the money back.
And then not pay the interest on it?
Right.
Okay.
Isn't that right, Allison?
Yeah, but she did say that the grant money goes first, so we'd still owe
Okay.
5.
All right. Anybody else before we look for a
Yeah,
motion
so
on this thing?
Allison, a question for you. You stated that number around the $40,000 mark is, that would be a new expense on behalf of the town. Is that correct?
So that was for the previous amount. That was if we had a loan for 14 million, it would be $42,000 a month. I think now with the $5 million loan, I think she said it was like 18,000 and something.
It's 18,000 now, it was 47.
You want to make the motion?
That's with
1,000?
interest, correct?
Yeah,
Me?
So we're,
Yeah.
we're
You
looking
wanna
at
put
an
it out there?
$18,000 expense a month
a month,
for 40 years.
yeah.
Okay, so each year that's 216 times 40. That's okay. So we're looking at essentially paying back almost 3.5 million in interest over 40 years.
Yeah.
Well, that's not even including your water project. Like, we
Correct.
haven't started paying that. So you've also got other debt.
One more thing I'll mention. We've kind of discussed, and when we were looking at the budget this time, we're almost certainly going to have to raise taxes next year, personal property and real estate. And, with all the issues we've been having with trash lately, I kind of think that that's going to end up costing us a extra for every single taxpayer here in town by next year as well. So we're going to be adding some stuff to them regardless of how we choose to go with this.
Let's try that again. All right, thank you. Good discussion. Andrea, you want to call the motion out?
Is there a consensus for a motion to authorize the application? I just need to know which way to go on the motion.
Mean to approve it?
Yeah.
I think we're lost. Why don't you just make the motion?
But she wanted a consensus of council before the motion, Mr. Mayor. If you maybe want to do a roll call to get a consensus to see if there is a motion, I guess. Is
Yeah,
that
I'm not going to be
correct?
able to do it.
All right,
If I'm understanding you correct, you won't, so
I don't want to put a motion out
Ye-
there that council doesn't want.
are you fine, Mr. Mayor, if we just go around in a roll call to give the consensus?
Well, somebody has to
I
make the
think-
motion.
I think I'll just make a motion to accept it with the engineers, with the work session with the engineers.
Is there a motion to authorize applying for funding through the USDA for improvements to the town's sanitary sewer system?
I'll make the motion.
I got a first by Randy, got a second? Hearing no seconds, motion doesn't carry. Do I have another motion on the floor?
You technically don't need to make a motion to
Right,
not
that's
apply.
fine.
They just, because the
We
town
either-
manager needs authorization to apply. So if there's no authorization,
okay.
nothing will happen. But you could do a motion if you wanted.
All right, moving on. We are now going to public comments. Do I have anybody here who would like to speak? Public comments? Please come up to the podium, state your name and address, please.
I want to say to Allison, it's hard to be here tonight. You hear me? My name's Anne Marie Giles, 260 Roper. Last month I was here and Jeff made a comment that he thanked people for being here, coming, and he welcomed us. And I like to say, I don't feel very welcome. People sitting back there are looking at the back sides of people on the table. We don't know who's talking because we can't see everybody's mouth, and we can't see yours at all. And that's okay. Words, names don't mean a thing to me. But I don't understand why we're in here all spread out, set up this way, and why we're not a little more comfortable in the front room where we have been. I can't believe it's still because of COVID. I'm not buying that one. The second thing was what Randy brought up, and I totally agree with him and totally disagree with the mayor. Randy said somebody complained to him about grass, and you had said that they need to come in and make a formal complaint in the front office. I don't understand why. We vote you people in. We vote you people in to represent us. And I don't understand why, if we're in A&M or if we're in Debbie's place and something happens to come up, why it can't be said and passed on. It seems like a total waste of time, of everybody's time, to come into the office. The girls are always talking about how much, the ladies, always talking about how much work they have to do, and you're adding on. My final comment is about the front room. I understand that these changes were made to make the ladies in the front office feel safer. And I can't imagine a setup more vulnerable than this one. If they don't get in the front door, which is more glass now than it's ever been, they will shoot out the plexiglass behind which the young lady is sitting. Allison was like a sitting duck today. That door was open. Honey, you're dead. Dead meat if anybody gets in. I don't know how much was spent. I'd like to know, and I'd like to know where I could find that, because I believe it was a total waste of our money.
Thank you.
Do I turn this off?
Anybody else like to speak?
Do you want me to respond to the grass question?
Ma'am?
Hello, my name is Yvette Harvey. I live in Maury Heights section. I want to know why, when these increases happen, why we don't get a notice. I understand we are not in the town of Bowling Green, but this affects us also. I got a water bill almost $200 and I live in a house alone. This is crazy. And then they're talking about going up 15% and then another 15%. If I don't find out these things with a notice in the mail, I have to go to the office in order for someone to tell me this. This is crazy. And I shouldn't have to pay a $200 water bill. This is more than my light bill. And how is it going to affect us again when you guys raise the increase in the sewage? I hear that Maury Heights get a higher increase because we're not in the residence of Bowling Green. And speaking to the manager, it doesn't help because she can't answer my question. She only could tell me why the increase is. We're in a recession, as everybody keeps saying, but how is it affecting us people? I don't even be home. I work. So why am I paying a $200 water bill?
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else like to speak?
Good evening, Council. Bonnie Cannon, South Main. I just have a couple more comments. I know I was up here earlier. I too have my water bill with me, and I agree with you. My water bill went up a little bit, but I don't know why. Because it's two of us in our household in Clyde, and I do not use the amount of water that we get billed for in North Sewage. I don't water plants. I don't wash cars. I wash machine a little bit. I don't know why our water is so high anyway, because we don't use the water. Two people in a house, and we're retired. Number two, trash. Was it you, Jeff, mentioned trash? I think somebody mentioned trash. And you know what I'd like to see happen with it? Resolve your problem. Do away with it completely. Because I don't need it. I got maggots in my cans now from this heat. It is nasty for me to go out there and look in the cans for once a week, pick up, and I've got to look at maggots in my trash can. In hot weather, you need to be picking up trash twice a week. No increase for what we have to go through. And another question. Did council secure sponsorship dollars for this Music on the Green that y'all are having? I'm asking. Nobody knows the answer to that?
No, we use budgeted money for it.
Why don't you get sponsorship money? You could take that money. Arthur was mentioning something a little while ago about Oh, what are
Thank
you
you
talking
for
about
your
this?
thank you.
Increases. You get sponsorship money for that. You could take that money and put it on another item. If
Thank
it
you
was
for
all
the
sponsor
Thank you
paid.
for the suggestion. We will look into it.
And also, when I read the ads, I don't like that words in us says free, because it's not free. And I have one more item. Y'all talking about all these rate increases. You're talking about taxes. You're mentioning everything going up if you do this USDA loan. But I have a comment about this year's budget y'all approved. I believe it was June 16th. Y'all did this budget, passed it June 16th. I have yet to read it, and I have yet to know what's going to happen with our 2022 taxes that come due in December. And you talk future raises? Come on, guys. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Anybody else like to speak? All right, seeing none, hearing none, I'd like to close public comments. I'd like to open up member comments. If any of the members would even like to follow up, rebuttal on some concerns the customers have, or talk about an event you went to.
Yeah, I'd like to open something up. Josh, what did VDOT say about that hole down there on Anderson Avenue in that sinkhole?
When Kyle comes on August 25th, I was going to take him over there and show it to him and see what they can do with it. I just hadn't mentioned to it because the 25th, and Thomas had sent me some pictures. So I have those pictures, and I was going to show them to Kyle and take him over there physically to see it.
Kyle is the head of the Kyle is the head of the residency, and he's
Right,
on
but he's also on
leave.
maternity leave.
He's on maternity leave right now.
Yeah, I think now, but getting caught up on everything. So that's why our meeting was August 20th. He was 6 weeks. But I do have the pictures from Thomas, so I'll show. And I was going to physically take him over there.
Mr. Mayor, if I
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
try my best to go in line on the public comments, I think at the least we owe at least some type of explanation to the questions that were brought up, if that's fine this evening. The first one, ma'am, I believe that it was around $11,000, if I recall correctly, for the price of the upgrades up front, and I want to believe that came out of the ARPA funds,
Yeah.
which was the COVID money that was given on behalf of the federal government. And there was also some playground upgrades that were also discussed on town council to upgrade some safety concerns that were brought up here. So I understand your concern, and it was also money that we were given by the government, and we have a allotted time to spend. So that was one of the topics that was brought up, was safety concerns here in the building, and then also the playground. There's still an allotted amount of money that is left from that fund from the federal government. Let me see here, we had this, ma'am, your second concerns regarding Maury Heights. You know, it is services that are provided on behalf of the town there for the sewer and the water. And, you know, I do believe in the past we've brought that up, and we've encouraged some of them to come to the meetings, even though they're not in the town. It is impacting those citizens that live there. And I can say that we did see a influx with the water meter upgrades. Some of the bills, there were questions from citizens there, and we did try to address that. And I believe the town manager and the town treasurer have gone through to try to look at those. And from what I've seen in the bills here, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's some refunds that have been issued, and it looks like from public utilities. So that's just from what I'm seeing on the reports here. And then the third, Mrs. Cannon, for you, with the trash cans, I mean, I do understand that, and I think that we are trying to address that. But the company, we brought it up in the last meeting, the company sold out, which was Shiflets, who we signed a contract with, and I asked with the new company coming in how that is going to impact, and if that gives us an opportunity to potentially move back to waste management, or if we had any leeway in that contract that was signed between Shiflets and the town of Bowling Green. So it was an item that we are trying to work on. I understand. There's some legal probably concerns with that, since there was a contract that was signed on behalf of that other company. They sold out to GFL and County Waste. They kind of all three had a merger, is my understanding, and it's not just here. It's everywhere that's had a concern. And then I can say that just from some knowledge that I have from King George County, some of their rates that they have for their water and sewer, ma'am, they are a lot more than what our citizens pay here. So I know it's not an answer per se, but it is a little more rougher across the bridge there on what they have to deal with too. But they've also been dealt with some of the issues that we've had where they've had to provide those upgrades and fix the system, and that unfortunately has a cost. So that's just what I wanted to try to provide them. So, sorry, I went on a little.
Anybody else? Oh. You want to come up to the mic and real quick?
Fixed rate, and it should be evaluated, or because they saying the number of people that live in a home. I'm in my house by myself, so you're basing me on 3 to 4 people, and I'm only using like half of what the max is for that part. That's my problem.
Yes, ma'am. I do understand that, because I'm in the same boat as you. There's just 2 individuals in there, and I feel like I'm not there a whole lot, but I also do pay that same flat rate. And my understanding is once you reach that threshold, if you go over it, then you start paying extra. If you don't use it, then you pay the flat minimum, is my understanding of it. But if
That's correct.
okay.
Yes.
That is
that's
correct.
correct.
And the money, of course,
We all pay the
goes,
same. But yeah,
it's all based on what it takes to maintain our water system, which is, we've had lots of discussion about that tonight. It sucks.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not fun and it's not good. And unfortunately, there's not much we could do about it.
All right. I do want to say thanks for liking the front office, but glass is coming in for the plexiglass. It was just a temporary deal. Yeah. Well, and that's it. Anybody got anything else? That we'll move on.
No, I did.
Well, we knew that. I was just
Yeah. I
making
mean,
that red light go off.
well, when other people are talking, I try to turn it off for that reason. But yeah, Arthur hit on quite a bit of it already, though. Good job, man. I'll try to hit on what else there was. I appreciate the feedback for the room in here. I'll say I'm still glad you're here. I still welcome you to be here. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. We've heard that a couple times, and maybe we should have some discussions on how to maybe change some things. One thing that I think all of us have noticed lately is we have. It feels like it used to be brighter in here. Talking to my colleagues, they've all kind of mentioned that. I don't know why that would suddenly be fading, but it is a bit darker. It is more, I don't know, warming in the other room, but we'll see. We'll have to discuss maybe moving back. We were changing our system more than a few times with the microphones. This current setup would work in the other room, but there'd still be some other considerations. We have to work it out logistically, so we'll see. But yeah, I do want you to feel welcome here, so we'll have to have that talk. I did want to briefly talk about council with citizen complaints, just because I want to put out there. Do feel that you can go to one of your council representatives with a concern for a complaint in the town. The reason to refer on to the office, though, is to try to keep individual, we would want to stay away from making any individual council members be the tattletaler or so. It's like, yeah, hey, you can go to this council person to get this kind of thing fixed or something like that. That would be kind of singling out, and so try to kind of stay away from that when possible. But yeah, big issues, go to them, you know. And I mean, over time, if you have an issue and you go to a council rep and nothing happens, well, then you know that gives you something to think about later on. Try going to a different one. But you know, you are empowered to come to the office and fill out a complaint form anytime. I get that can sometimes be more difficult, but it is an option. Front room, he hit the trash. Yeah, we're going to have to talk about that here pretty soon. Personally, I kind of wanted to see some of the, with all the changing of hands of companies, I kind of wanted to see it shake out a little bit more. But there are some policy considerations I'd like to approach, but again, kind of have to wait a little longer on that. There was leftover monies to deal with the music on the green. I do like the idea of looking for sponsors, and that's something we should entertain at least for the next budget cycle. But that said, this is about the only place I can say this. We have had a bit of a habit of turning the public comment period into a discussion period, and we kind of need to try to put a tamper on that, because it leads to just perpetuating, and then there becomes more negativity. That looks like that's about all so we're about to hear on the water issues, and I wish I would have known lately, because you know so much of this work is stuff that I was already doing. I had some more information for y'all, but I'm gonna go ahead and skip most of it. Hearing it from an engineer is gonna be better anyway. But in the future, I will have some other supporting information, and I will leave it at that.
Thank you, Jeff. All right, moving on to staff reports and presentations. Item number 2, water supply project update. Allison, you take it away.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, a couple months ago, I told council that I would bring back to them information from a specialist, hydrologist, engineer firm, and get the project started. At some point, we may need an RFP if we want to do more work, but I know that everybody's interested in finding out quickly what the status is for water based on the DEQ discussion. I reached out to a firm that specializes in this area, Cardno Stantic, today we have Bryant Mountjoy, who's one of the 2 hydrologists that I've spoken with. It was quite simple what I asked for to start us in the right direction. I wanted to take the 2011 water plan that was done by Webb and Associates, and I wanted that summarized and put into layman's terms so that council and everyone could understand exactly what the issues are. To apply for permits for our next water supply for groundwater. And then 3, also help us with working on the Rappahannock River withdrawal permit. I am in the process, I'm using Mr. Voigt's build-out analysis and creating a letter. I'm talking about sitting down with the county, King George, Port Royal, and figuring out what's in the best interest of Bowling Green. So to start, they have a proposal, and basically what they're going to do, it's very simple, it's scientific. They're going to run the model, and they're going to tell you, he's going to tell you about all of this, and hopefully if you have a variety of questions or you want to know more information than what I expressed to this company, then I want to make sure that everything is addressed. And so I've given you the proposal to start figuring out our water issues. And so with that, the model's going to say we either fail or we pass. If we fail and then we can't get water from wells, then then we're going to have to look at surface water right now. And so anyway, I'm going to turn it over to Bryant Mountjoy to explain further what it is that they do as hydrologists.
Hello. Thank you, Allison, and thank you, everyone, for having me here today. My name is Bryant Mountjoy. I'm a professional geologist with Stantec. Specifically, I'm a hydrogeologist, so study groundwater and routinely work on groundwater withdrawal permits and water supply permitting throughout the state for municipalities, private industry, anyone who needs a significant amount of water. So I know DEQ came and talked to you guys previously, but I want to sort of set the stage for where we are right now. What's the situation you're in and why you're in that situation. Then we can get into the regulatory framework of why this might be a problem going forward, and what some of your options would be. We're not going to have the answer to all those options right now, but that's what this. What Allison asked us to put together was a scope of what we would need to do in order to get some of those answers. So passed around a couple of figures to everyone just to have some frame of reference for our discussion this evening. The first one I guess we can start with is this map here from DEQ, which is just simply showing the coastal plain of Virginia. And the area that's in green there is what's called the Eastern Virginia Groundwater Management Area. Back in 1992, this was designated a groundwater management area by DEQ, and it's an area that was recognized as having a limited groundwater supply, and we need to be careful and watch it to ensure that withdrawals permitted from it are sustainable. And that's evolved through the years. Part of the process, I guess before getting into the model, we'll talk about the geology a little bit. So the coastal plain aquifer system essentially follows I-95 and goes further east all the way to the ocean. If you look at the cross-section figure here, which is the black and white showing cross-section from, generally speaking, west to east across the coastal plain, this is the layers, or the lithology you would call, of the coastal plain aquifer system here in Virginia. So each of these layers represent a different geologic unit. You have coarse materials like sands and gravels that transmit water, and in between those, sometimes you've got finer materials like clays that don't like to transmit water. So the sediments that transmit water are known as aquifers, and there are several of those throughout the coastal plain, different ages, different depths. I don't have a copy of the groundwater withdrawal permit, but I believe your wells are in the Potomac Aquifer, which is, generally speaking, it is the deepest and thickest aquifer in the coastal plain. It's generally the most productive and most widely used in the coastal plain. But one thing I will point out here is, as you'll see, it's sort of a wedge shape, your aquifer system. It's thinnest near what's called the fall zone, which is essentially I-95. And it thickens and deepens as you go closer to the ocean. So where it's thinnest, you can think of it as, you're closer to where, a good analogy is if you hold a water bottle on its angle, you can see the water level that slopes up towards the top of your bottle. That's where you are at your fall zone. So it's thin, you've got less storage, closer to I-95 that you get. The aquifer systems are what are called confined aquifer systems, which means they're separated from land surface. They don't directly receive recharge from precipitation. So the water that's in these deep aquifers is hundreds to thousands of years old. It's recharged long ago. It takes a long time to make its way that deep into the ground. So these aquifers don't recharge very quickly. There's a limited quantity of water there. And historically, the aquifer system has been over-allocated. The withdrawals that have been permitted have been over-allocated. And one of the main reasons for that is on the same cross-section figure, you can see far towards the east side, there's the dip that sort of shows all of the aquifers being squished down below a certain point. That was caused by it's within the Chesapeake Bay impact crater. There was an asteroid which hit many years ago, obviously, but it was only discovered, relatively recently. It was after the initial allocations were made for the groundwater withdrawal permitting program. And long story short, the result of that is there's significantly less storage and extent of the aquifer system in Virginia than was originally thought. So in 2014, DEQ started rethinking things. They have an updated groundwater model, taking that into account. And that's where a lot of these, in 2014, there were significant reductions that were made on some of the largest groundwater withdrawal groundwater users in Virginia, trying to get us back to a point that's sustainable in the long term. We're not drawing down the water too far in these aquifer systems. So that said, the way that the groundwater withdrawal permitting program works, there's two general criteria for what DEQ calls their technical evaluation. That's the process they go through. Once you've shown I need this much water, you've proven that point, that's your justification. One of the next steps they go through is their technical evaluation, which involves using a groundwater model to determine it determines the impacts of your proposed withdrawal. There are two general criteria that are used to determine whether your withdrawal will technically pass or fail their evaluation. Those are called critical cells. If you look at this map here, which has all of these orange squares on it, that's an example of a critical cell map. These cells are model cells, which are 1 mile squares. In each of those model cells, the groundwater model will calculate the head or elevation of groundwater within each of those cells. And they become what DEQ calls critical when the head reaches a point that represents 80% of the distance between land surface and that aquifer top. So the 80% threshold is sort of a safety, it's a buffer. You do not want your water, your head in the aquifer to drop below the aquifer top, because once you do that, you cause irreversible loss of storage in that aquifer. Once the water drops below the top of the aquifer, those sediments can compress. It's reducing the pore space that's available for water to be in it. So by doing that, you permanently damage the ability of the aquifer to transmit water and store water. So that's why that criteria is there. Second is the area of impact. The area of impact is the area in which your proposed withdrawal is simulated to cause 1 foot or more drawdown. So decline in head aquifer pressure, or the elevation that the water would rise in your well. If you drop that by 1 foot or more, that then creates your area of impact, which you can think of if you have a single well, it's essentially going to be a circle around your well showing within this area you're simulated to cause 1 foot or more of drawdown. And the two of those relate. If you cause 1 foot or more than 1 foot or more of drawdown in any aquifer, that intersects one of these critical cells or creates a new critical cell, That's a failed technical evaluation. So the goal is to stop these critical cells from becoming more critical or creating new ones from a withdrawal. So the map that I have in front of you, you'll notice it says the Aquia aquifer critical cells. The Aquia, if you look at your cross-section diagram, it sits above the Potomac, which is where your wells are situated. That is, generally, well, I don't have a Potomac aquifer critical cell map because there are not critical cells in Potomac aquifer right where we are. There are some, several miles away, but they're not positioned right around Bowling Green. However, the Aquia aquifer sits right on top of it. It's separated from the Potomac aquifer by a confining unit of finer materials like clays and silts that don't transmit water as readily. But the entire system is interconnected. A drop in pressure in one of these layers, depending on how thick your confining zone is above it, can affect overlying layers also. So it's really a pressure-based system. So declines in one area will gradually radiate out, causing declines in pressure or head in others. So since Bowling Green is sitting square in the middle of some of these Aquia critical cells, that's the main concern here. It's hard to say it's impossible to say, frankly, without running the model, what your impacts would look like in the model. But since you are in these critical cells, there is a significant chance that your withdrawal would create an area of impact that would intersect one or more of these critical cells, therefore leading to what is a failed technical evaluation. A failed technical evaluation by letter of the law says that DEQ is not allowed to issue a new groundwater withdrawal permit. In practice, the way that's been working for municipalities is when it comes around time for renewal, your permit renewal comes up in 2028, I believe. They will reissue the permit no greater than your existing limits. That said, they will also, likely have a requirement in there for you to start looking at alternate water sources. A lot of the entities in this region, other municipalities are being pushed to surface water, as you know. They're wanting to get off of the groundwater system as much as possible, where possible, because it's still an overallocated resource. So DEQ is trying as, where they can to push whoever can feasibly use a surface water body to do so. So that's why you are where you are. So my understanding is you have a current groundwater withdrawal permit for, I believe, about 69.5 million gallons per year, but you're using pretty close to the top of that. So our understanding is about 85% of that's already being accounted for, which is cutting it close. You have a high demand year, you're going to be getting close to the top of your permit, which does not leave a whole lot of room for growth. Our understanding is there's some development options that are being considered that could potentially raise the water demands by 50% or so, just based on the number of connections we're talking about here, without having done a thorough analysis of that. But that's a significant increase as far as groundwater withdrawal permit goes, and we would have to evaluate the impacts of that on the groundwater model before you can say for sure whether that's something that can be obtained from DEQ's groundwater withdrawal permitting program or not. So that's essentially why we are where we are. Your options are, we will look into the groundwater model a little bit more in this proposal that you have in front of you. We've talked about a few things. Since we're talking about the groundwater model, we've proposed to run 3 groundwater withdrawal simulations in the groundwater model. We use the same model that DEQ uses for their technical evaluation process. And we typically run that to get a preview of whether or not the proposed withdrawal would or would not pass a technical evaluation. So we have 3 simulations in here budgeted, which is we have the opportunity before you give it to DEQ to play around with some scenarios. So you can pick some different volumes to see what might pass, what might not pass DEQ's technical evaluation. So that's probably that's a good, if you know what you can get from the groundwater withdrawal permitting program from your existing wells, that'll help you answer that question. The additional work in here is related to your other options. So if groundwater, either you can't get all of your groundwater from the groundwater withdrawal permit, you have to reduce the groundwater withdrawal permit. You have, as has been discussed a little bit, you have the option of looking into the surface water permit. We haven't had a look at that application or the process of that yet, but we would look into that, see what the steps forward for you would be for if you were to join in on this withdrawal effort from the Rappahannock River. What would that look like going forward as far as time frame and the steps involved? So that's generally our purpose here. I'm happy to answer any questions that I can at this stage, but I'll preface that with we still need to get into the details here, so I'll answer what I can, generally speaking. But yeah, I'm happy to answer questions if anyone has any.
I got one for you, sir.
Sure.
Try to do some math. So you said roughly 69 million gallons a year is what we're slated for on the withdrawal permit.
That's what I have, yeah, 69.5.
So if I take that and would you divide it by 365 to give a rough daily average?
Roughly, yes.
So that's 189,000. So historically in the past, we've reached a peak of over 200,000. So right now we're slated for a withdrawal of less than what we've peaked at. And then you said 85%. So times in that number by 0.85 would give us a rough estimate of 586,500 gallons left over. If we were looking at that 15% out of that permit on a yearly basis, and that would be divided by 365, which is 1,600 gallons a day, which would leave us at 300 gallons per day for resident, the capacity to add on roughly 5.3 residents, if I did all that correct, in a rough estimate. So your current water system could potentially take on an extra 5 residents, is what I'm.
That sounds like what DEQ told me on the phone.
So I do know in the past on the previous water study, there was over a 200,000 gallon per day that we had peaked at. So that right now we're slated for less than that by DEQ's withdrawal permit, but I was just trying to run some quick numbers.
Yeah, but those peak times is like summertime, people watering the grass,
Yes.
washing the
correct, but
cars, irrigation systems,
You
and then during
can't not take that into consideration, because if you don't have the water demand during the peak time, then you're going to run out of water.
Yeah, I'll add to that just so everyone's on the same page. There's two permit limits related to in your permit. You have a monthly limit and an annual limit. The annual limit is typically the trickier one to get DEQ to buy into. If you can prove your monthly demands, based on, like you said, the seasonality of your withdrawal, that's your monthly permit limit is not going to be simply 1/12 of your annual. That will be a higher number to account for some of that seasonality.
Is it my understanding that mostly all the tests you're doing are the same ones that DEQ does?
Yes, we have the same model files. We go through the
Okay.
exact same process that DEQ does.
And you mentioned that we were up again for our permit ends what was the date you gave me?
I believe it was 2028 is when it
2028.
expires.
Allison, do you remember? I thought it was sooner than that.
What the problem is that we need a new permit now. Because as Mr. Holy pointed out, I don't have any water to sell. So we need to go ahead and move forward now.
We can
Yeah, I'm
reapply.
just trying to figure out though when the DEQ was going to do it. Because don't they do this assessment before they issue our water permits anyway? I mean, am I wrong in that?
I can jump in.
Yeah, go ahead.
The DEQ will do this again after we apply. The point of us working with
Yeah.
them, and then as soon as we go and fill out that application, DEQ is going to do what they do on their own end and come to the hopefully same answers, and then make their decision.
Right, I
But yeah,
understand
our thing is up in 28, but it's
It is
our
the 28,
responsibility to
okay.
just do it sooner.
Yeah, I was just thinking if it's next year, then, if we're doing the
There was
same
one time where
testing?
26 got thrown out, but that was incorrect.
Okay, got ya, thanks.
The application will be due 270 days prior to its expiration, so that's sometime in 2027. It should be when it's technically due. And yeah, they'll run that application, or they'll run the technical evaluation at some point after your application goes in.
Yeah, I guess we could go ahead and ask you, from your position, what is the timetable on all of this? If we were to start like right now?
As far as these steps here, or the
Oh,
permitting
yeah, a little bit of
process?
everything, working with you and then after that.
Sure, yeah, the work that's defined in here is, and it's not a significant, a significant amount of time devoted to that. We've got to get some data from the town as far as, your water usage records, some of this information related to the surface water withdrawal application, so we can review that and see what that would look like. So yeah, if we get from the moment we get all the documentation we need to look at, this is a matter of probably a month or two to pull this together. If it comes down to, well, it probably will come down to either renewing or expanding the groundwater withdrawal permit. That's the permitting process for preparing the application. That's usually a few months worth of work, but DEQ will take 18 to 24 months right now to review the permit. It's a very long process right now, which we're trying as hard as we can to push some of them through, but it does take some time. So as far as getting that process started, the sooner the better, because it's not a quick thing. So if you're worried about approaching permit limits, as is, it's important to start looking at that before you get too close, because it will take some time.
And that is what they told me, is that I thought I had more water to sell, and they said no. They said, you need to start now.
And that's why we're reaching out to you, sir. To reiterate something, can I get your opinion on this statement? DEQ is in the business of protecting this water source, not in the business of giving out water permits.
That's correct. Their motivation is primarily the sustainability of the water source. It's not, Virginia doesn't necessarily operate in the same way as, if you think about water rights far out west, you have your water, this is yours, this is the way it goes. In some sense, that's the way it works with you have a permit, but it's not an indefinite thing. So it's, they've, as we talked about, they've gone through different, evaluations, determined that we are reaching we have reached a point where we've over allocated the groundwater resources and have to start backing off in order to make sure this is sustainable.
They didn't really answer this one when they were here. I don't know how many permits you work with, but can you speak to what the trend is lately? Are people keeping what they have, getting more, or getting dropped down?
They are getting dropped down typically. It depends on where you are. There are new applications going through for new withdrawals, but if you're in an area that's already looking critical in terms of aquifer heads, they are getting pushed down. There are several permits that I'm aware of where they're being forced to look at alternate sources over the next permit term. So an example, a permit, say your permit was reissued in 2028, which is probably not going to be what the case is, but if your permit was reissued in 2028, there would likely be a condition in there for investigating an alternate source and at some point implementing the alternate source.
Our nearest critical cell, according to them, was a little bit over 8 miles away.
Right.
And our surface water plan, the county's surface water plan, even if they were to start digging it today, is still upwards of 12 years out.
Okay.
I think I may be wrong on this, but from what I've gathered from information from the county is that it could potentially move faster if there was a demand for that.
Yes.
So like an expansion of growth that just came down south down the 95 corridor. So that could prompt it to speed it up. But I think, like you said, under normal circumstances, it's
The current plan is
process,
is
yeah.
around there, yeah. I mean, they don't have the 42 million at the moment anyway, but
I'll add one clarifying point about, since you mentioned the area, the critical cell being 8 miles away. Just made me think about the way that the model interprets your area of impact. It's not just the expansion amount. So what's done is your withdrawal is entirely taken away in the model. So it's as if you were not there. And then your withdrawal is put back into the model. So it says it looks at your entire amount. So just the increase of whatever ends up being 50% if you're looking for an expansion. It would not just be the 50% simulation, it would be the entire amount that you're applying for. It's like you're starting from the beginning and seeing what the total impact would be. So that would be, that's what it's looking at. The baseline isn't your existing permit, it's before you were there. So with the amounts that we're talking here, you have to run the model to see, but there is a decent chance that it would intersect critical cells 8 miles away. And like I mentioned in the aquifer overlying it, that's just about 60 feet away. So if you cause enough pressure drop, it might intersect that aquifer as well, even though you're not withdrawing from it.
So I chose Stantec because they can run the model, and council wanted an answer quickly, and this is the way to get an answer quickly.
All right, so your paperwork here says you'll run 3 models based off, what you presented here. So you want to talk that out for us a little bit? My initial assumption is we give you 3 different, requests, and then you run those and say if they're any good.
Yeah, we can walk through that with you, when we get the data and look into this a little bit more. But the general process is we'll work with you and figure out 3. We can figure out 3 options. One will probably be your existing permit limits. One will, and then from there, that if that were the initial simulation, we could see what the results of that were, and that would probably guide us into what are the next simulations you would want to look at. If that passed, that's a good thing, generally speaking. And then maybe you look at some expansion. Could you get more if you passed your current permits? If you didn't, an option would be to look lower. What would you be able to get and pass? Even if it doesn't account for the whole amount, at least you're likely to be permitted volumes.
And you'll be able to have some research data to kind of help guide us to a good number to start with.
Certainly.
Yeah, sure. Great.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Allison? Good job.
We'll move forward. Thank you.
All right, next.
Thank you
we
very much
have,
for coming out.
Next, we have the 2022 Harvest Festival. Lisa talked with us in the work session, but I would like for her to maybe just give a summary to the public that's here and the people on the Zoom or.
One second.
Yes.
Allison, did
You
you
too.
want a vote from council?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be ideal. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Hang on one second, Lisa. All right, do I have a motion to, you want the motion to be what?
Do what you
Allison?
want.
The motion would be to move forward with the proposal for preliminary consulting services, the status and feasibility evaluation of water withdrawal permitting options with Stantec, Cardno? Yeah, Stantec.
I make that motion that we move
I
forward.
got a first by
Second.
Ms. Gaines, second,
Second.
Arthur. All right, we'll do a roll call on it. Jean,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Yes.
Valerie,
Yes.
Deborah,
Absolutely.
Randy,
Yes.
Arthur.
Yes.
All right, unanimous, yeah, can't even say it now. All right, it passes. So expect some good work out of you, sir. All right, now Lisa, give us something for people on YouTube and in the public on what you're planning to do with this Harvest Festival, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of Town Council. I'm here tonight to give you an update on the 2022 Bowling Green Harvest Festival. Before you have a packet, as I have promised each month, I would provide for you to keep you abreast of where we are, where we're headed. At this point, if you look at the first sheet on the top, it says August 2022. Everything that is in the blue has been brought to you before in the way of the 3 stages: the Pumpkin Classic, which is the car, truck, and bike show; the kids area, the vendors, the food vendors, and the around the town scavenger hunt. The confirmed activities are still the Brunswick Stew, the Aerial Artist, the Petting Zoo, the Mid-Atlantic Cornhole Tournament, and the Harvest Festival contest tent has had a few additions that the town requested maybe to look into, which would be a chili cook-off, pie eating, and apple peeling. The thing in orange in the confirmed activities right now, we are at tentatively adding a Oktoberfest Village, which will run in the way of our business district area where our businesses are closest together. And it will take place, the main part of that Oktoberfest will be in the Heist. And it will, along that way, we'll have Bavarian pretzels and bratwurst and music. That time is a change. I do apologize. Please adjust that on your schedule as to 11 to 4 per the owners of the Heist. There also in that area will be an Oktoberfest Village contest tent where we'll have the longest beard and some nail driving, etc. things going on at that time. The stages we will have are 3 stages. The main stage, which at this point will be JRTC, will start and kick us off. We'll have Crowfoot Bottom, Cactus Jack, and Chris Ryan have been confirmed at this time. The kids stage will start also at 9 o'clock with the kids signing the pledge from Lewis and Clark Elementary School, a mad scientist, a pageant for Little Miss Mister through Caroline's Promise, karaoke, and then the CHS theater team will come and provide some theater for children. And then the praise stage at Bowling Green Baptist will kick off with an anthem at 9 a.m. and local churches will perform from 9 to 3:30. In progress right now, which is in the orange, we are going to continue to solicit for vendors, nonprofits, car, truck, and bike show, asking for applications to be due by September 1. The Oktoberfest Village, we're reaching out to businesses in that area this week and next week to continue getting that area a little bit more enhanced. Advertising and printing materials and resources will be done this month. We've talked to the Building and Trades Department at Caroline High School. They are going to be selling or auctioning off a shed at the event. And at their shed, we'll have cutout props with cute little corn and pumpkins that people can put their faces into and take pictures. And then, of course, we're going to have the strongest push on sponsorships this month. Viola and I have been working diligently to get that information out, and we are working on sponsorships to cover our event portion. Our next steps are September. The vendor packets will go out September 15th, just so you're aware of that, and purchasing will start taking place. The second page that you have is the monthly financial report. It shows our revenues have come in at $3,280 with $500 promised from REC and Atlantic Union Bank. Our vendors have come in at $2,250 thus far. And our car, truck, and bike show is at a whopping $30 so far. And those attachments of the vendors are your next few attachments on the back. I've provided the vendor tracking sheet so you can see which vendors have signed up and how much they have paid for their spaces. And that's the food, the nonprofit, our home aids, and our direct sales. At this time, there are no expenditures that I know of that have gone out in related to the Harvest Festival. So our ending balance with the beginning balance in the account, as well as the additional revenues, are at $26,280. Now you note at the bottom in yet bright yellow, we do have promised expenses are the encumbrances, which are promised expenses to the bands that we will not pay to after the Harvest Festival. So I did want to note those expenses are there. And they do total $5,100, which still keeps our balance at 21. Of course, we're going to secure sponsors for those. That's the plan. So hopefully those sponsorships will cover that and boost that account back up. I did meet with the county administrator, the Commissioner of Revenue, the Commissioner of Revenue, Mark Bassoon, and he has agreed to provide guidance on the trust tax, which is the food and beverage tax that people pay when they come to festivals. And he is going to provide some guidance for me with forms that I will send out with the food vendors to make sure that their taxes are paid at the end of the event, with the help of, I'm sure our staff will help us. And I do want to give a shout out to the staff in the office for helping me and keeping everything super organized. They have been amazing to work with, and keeping the vendors tracked as they come in. When you have a lot of hands in the pot, it certainly is hard if you don't have good people manning that. So I appreciate the help of the staff and the town manager for being very supportive through all this, as it being my first year. At this time, I yield the floor if the council has any questions.
I just want to say this is a great report. You did a
Thank you.
fabulous job.
Thank you very much.
I'll second that. I just wanted, Mr. Mayor, if you could give the answer on the trash services that I think you had discussed with the county, if we would add that into the expenses.
Yeah, I think we got with Joey Sheba, didn't y'all? And we're trying to get him even down further on the price.
Yes, Public Works said they needed just one, and yes, they can do it for, I talked also to Jeff Seeley, and they can do it for a much more reasonable price. I think last year we paid $2,400, but it's only
Yeah,
gonna
it was 400, I think, last year.
it was, no.
No, I'm saying what they would have charged us was.
Right,
Joey
they
said
were
it was
going to charge us $400
instead
for
of
4.
27.
Right.
Right,
So we're going to get it for in the hundreds rather than,
okay,
yeah.
we're good.
So,
All right. Yeah, thank you, Arthur, for bringing that up.
It would be an expense to Caroline County to provide that for the event, where in the past we've used a private company. I just wanted to make sure that you were tracking that on your expense, because it would be one that we would have on it.
Great, thank
Right.
you. And any expenses that do come in that would be a Harvest Festival expense that maybe I'm not aware of, if I could be let known so I can put it on the financials, it keeps everything in line each month. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. All right, Allison, this is your specialty, Recover React.
so Mr. Mayor, this is the time when staff gives an update on any projects that we're doing or proposes any new projects. And so Josh Irby will give an update on the playground. And I think that is the only project at this moment that there's been movement on this month. Do you have anything?
All right, Josh?
He does.
So I spoke with the contractor that Ms. Gaines, Mr. Webb, and myself have been working with, and the mayor and Allison have met as well out at the playground. So he's going to work on a design. He's going to put together a design that breaks out the cost of each, like the mulch, under drain, equipment, things like that. And then that way we have something to go off of as far as like cost wise, and then things that we ourselves can do. I know the mayor and Mr. Webb have agreed to help, get the wooden border out of the way and the mulch out of the way. And I think we've had some discussions on what to do with the equipment that we will no longer be using. So things like that we can do ourselves to help save on that cost. That'll give us a better understanding of how much it's going to cost, what we can do, and then how much everything else is going to cost. But he's working on that design now, and that usually takes a couple of weeks, but they're working on that now.
Have you been in contact, or has the gentleman been in contact with you as far as discussing the grants that are out there for this? Or is that something we got to wait for until later down the road?
He sent that information to Allison. I believe Allison was working on that.
Okay, well, as long as he did what he said he was going to do, that's good then.
I'll have an update next month on
Next
that.
month, okay. Because there is grants out there that can help also with this. So we're being told. So we'll see how that plays out. But this being ARCA fund, they may withdraw grants for already receiving government funding. But this is something we can check into and find out. So
Josh, is this a playground park or just playground?
So this would just be for the 2 playgrounds. This wouldn't include any sidewalks or the pickleball courts or anything like that. This would just be the 2 individual playgrounds.
Are they individual or contiguous?
So you're going to have a age 2 to 5 range, and then an age 5 to 12, because that's what we have now. Depending on where we put them, they might end up being continuous, and that's something after he lays out the design, we can, switch and move around.
So will they have a path that you can walk from one to the other? Will they be connected? Or are you having 2 separate total areas? That's what I'm trying to get at.
Our grand scheme of things is to connect them so they're together there.
By a
So
path.
there's a sidewalk that'll be next to the pavilion. That's what we talked about. So it's ADA compliance, and wheelchair could get down there and access both of them.
Can the wheelchairs or someone with a broken leg or crutches get into
Yeah.
the playground?
Yeah.
Onto the surface? So, but we don't know what the surface is yet.
Yeah, that'll all be broken out. So the sidewalk was separate from, the playground part of it, and, things like that were separate from this part of it. But there will be a path. And then he's going to break down, all the cost wise, so that way everyone can, have a chance to look at it and vote on which way to go as far as surfacing equipment, and, whether the town does some of the work or they do all of the work, or we try to find, grant money or, someone to volunteer and come do, some of the work as well.
Thanks.
And as far as the pickleball court, Alice and I met a gentleman out there, and he took measurements and everything like that. I checked with him earlier. He's still waiting for some contractors to get back with him on prices, so.
So again, will there be any park area though? So say someone wants to come and sit on a bench, or they want to play chess, or some kind of tables created for elderly people, because it's not just a,
The pavilion is still there with the tables and chairs and that.
outside of the pavilion,
there'll be
you have
benches.
additional area.
Yeah,
So is,
our plan is to have benches so the moms can sit and watch either park for the young ones or the old ones or whoever.
okay.
And there is still going to be green space. So where the 2 to 5 year old playground is now, that'll be gone, and that'll be green space. There's still going to be green space behind the pavilion and behind the playgrounds as well.
Ms. Coyle, I want to make sure that all council is listened to on this project. So if you have something else that you want to add to it, we can always get quotes on that. We're coming back at the end with all the proposals so the council can make their final approvals. So we can look into other things if something's not being, if you don't see something in this project that you'd like to.
Well, it's not that I don't see it. I don't see anything because I have nothing to see. So that's why I'm asking the questions. I mean, that's fine. Once we have everything put together and the design is done, we all look at it, that's great. So that's why I'm asking the questions, because I don't know. I don't know if it's just a playground for children. Is there a park area as well? If you're having a pickleboard court, is there a connection to get from the park playground area to the pickleboard court, or do you have to walk down? I'm just trying to get an idea of how the design is, because we haven't seen anything other than what Ms. Gaines gave us 4 months ago. So that's why I'm just curious. Thank you.
I'm questionable too. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I had mentioned earlier that a bathroom somewhere, looking at that. And I mean, I feel like you go big if you're just kind of, if it's going to be one of these things we're going to look at and say, I like this, maybe we don't need to do that. I feel like I feel like this has kind of not gotten the consideration that I think it deserves. And I'm hearing, we're thinking big when it comes to certain things, but this is something that serves our community. And I do think when I'm looking at parks and playgrounds nowadays, they're looking big. And I think we should think that we don't have a lot to offer in this town and people pay taxes. This is something important. And I feel like we should have something in front of us. If we're at a point where, you know, we're already in a pick and choose, I feel like Valerie, I don't think I have seen a lot on this.
So we're not at a pick and choose. It was just, he's putting together a design as far as with certain equipment, you know, just giving us a cost on the playground part. This was multi-year.
Well, I haven't heard
kind of
you
like
talk about
plan,
restrooms, and I think that's important. I haven't heard, you know, we do need benches. We do need, when you talk about green space, there should be trees out there. There should be access to water. There's so much you can do. And I guess I feel like I want to hear some creativity in this.
So I was kind of working with a certain budget because I was under the impression we didn't want to spend a whole lot of money on this. However,
Well, I don't know who gave you that
mean,
impression, because personally, I think it's one of the most important things that we can do for this town.
I believe we already voted and made a motion on the allotted amount of money for this project a few months ago.
It was 150.
$150,000.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
with the definite discussion that we would make sure we brought things back to council, so.
All right,
Yeah,
so
I thought
if
we
you're
had-
spending 150,000, I just don't see, and I guess we'll see that. If we're going to have a pickleboard court, I'd just like to see some kind of playground park that's innovative, creative, experiential for children as well as adults, not just a playground for 2 to 3 and something from 6 to 7. Why segregate them? Why not have something that creates them and bring them together so they're diversified in what they're doing and innovative instead of just a bunch of swings and a bunch of mulch? Is there some kind of things that they can touch and feel? Those types of things, which I'm sure you're looking at. That's all.
we are. So
50,000, I just, like Deborah says, it's not just for kids, it should be a park area in green as well for other people. Just, it's.
You were just about to say how this is a multi-year project, right?
Yeah, it's a multi-year project, and so all of these things, so bathrooms, water, lights, so like we've talked about running, you know, like pavilion, you know, before and everything. So that's going to push us way past $150,000. So if that's the direction you would like me to go in, as far as like bathroom facilities, electricity, you know, everything. I mean, it could turn. I mean, it's as much as, you know, you all want to spend or don't want to spend. I will look at anything y'all want me to look at. We were just going off of,
All right, we're just,
you know, what we had, and, you know, kind of going.
let's see what pressure you can put on your guy to get you something, because that was over a month ago, almost 2 months ago, we had that discussion with him. See what he can get you.
Yeah,
by
I mean,
next
people have been
council.
on vacations and different things like that.
But, you know, I don't think he's the only one in the office, but just try to see if you can get something for us for the next meeting to show council some idea that they can put their mind to, and then we can start constructing from that, because all he's interested in is playground, where we still have the rest of the area, the parking area, the sidewalks, the green areas that he's not attending to. Okay, he's just the playground equipment. That's it. So see what you can come up with, pressure him to get something by next council. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I definitely can. I guess if you're looking for different surfacing, different equipment, and that's going to push the price further up, I mean, is that okay with everyone? Or, I mean, I just don't want to bring something.
Give us some options.
Exactly.
Well, he did give us a lot of options with the book and the equipment that we looked at. But one piece of equipment is $100,000. That's just the equipment. He said you got to double that to install it. So you're looking at $200,000 just for one piece of equipment. So give us direction to go.
It's quite expensive on all that. That's why, like, we were working within the budget we had, and that's why, like, we decided to move forward so we could see a breakdown of, how much each individual, part of the process was going to cost to try and, save some money. So some of the larger structures and different things are cost. So I can ask them to, provide different options and, different things like that. I was working.
I think for me, and it's kind of like everything we've discussed tonight, I'm a big picture person. And maybe this is one of those things that's going to take time. We need to do the best we can, which I think we already voted on to maintain it right now. But again, I would like to see a plan for the whole thing and take it in stages. That's fine. But the piece, to me, it sounds like we're piecemealing something else. And that's what I'm not
Well,
a fan
Dan
of.
Webb did give a display. He did have a.
Yeah, and I don't know what happened to that. I
and
remember seeing it.
It was
Didn't he have
here,
like
and
this?
he did a printout for you.
Yeah, I don't
So
know
that was our
where
plan,
we
like,
went off track with that. And that's
3
part of
different
my concern.
stages. So, I mean,
Yeah.
we just don't have that much money right now to.
Yeah, we haven't.
all of that.
Before, you mentioned early that was going to be done in stages anyway, so thank you for your help.
Exactly.
Thank
right.
you as well for your help.
That's right.
Thank you, Josh. You said there was nobody else on future plans, so we can move on?
Well, I was just going to give a little insight in reference to that topic. I would say maybe obtain a few different quotes, because I just pulled one real quick for one of those pieces of equipment. It was 48,000, so that's about half of what, if they're just pulling from one company, maybe get a couple different ones, because that was a pretty elaborate piece there with a lot of capacity for that price. So,
All right.
just an idea.
Thank you. The only other project that we have going on at this time with the coronavirus funds, Recovery Act funds, is continuation of our new Keystone software. Jackie Nance continues to work very closely on the financial side of it, financial elements of the software that are currently in place or getting into place, and utilities will be, it's our next module to go live. So it'll be about November when that happens for that bill. And then the remainder of the modules will go in, will go live sometime in 2023. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll be glad to get that system in place. The girls, y'all have really done good with keeping your workload down, so you're not spending a lot of time here when you don't need to. So I just want to thank you. All right, Planning Commission update. Do we have anything from them?
The planning, the Planning Commission, well, there's items on the agenda further on pertaining to the work that they have been doing over the past several months. And so we continue to do comprehensive plan update and code amendments.
I want to add on to that a little bit. Yeah, that's been the primary focus for upwards of 3 months with the Planning Commission. They're doing a good job down there. And I wanted to wait until after we heard from the engineer there to mention we also were having some discussion about like the water issue, and because it's Planning Commission, so planning water. I've been building some other stuff, but having an outside engineer take the forefront on all that for the things that we really need is going to modify the scope of what I've been researching. So I'm going to reformat a lot of the stuff that I've gathered to only have relevant stuff. I don't want to duplicate what they're doing, but there is some other issues that we can still talk about in that meantime, and I'm gonna hold all that off for like next month or so.
Public Works and Utilities report. Any questions, anybody on that? Josh, you have anything you want to add?
I just want to remind everyone, Music on the Green starts tomorrow. It's every Friday in August, and then 2 weeks in September. And then Thursday, August 25th, 1 o'clock here, VDOT's here. I'm going to ask him about the sidewalks and then the issue on Anderson Avenue, but Kyle will be here. So if any of y'all would like to attend and ask him any questions y'all have.
On them sidewalks, Randy, right there next to you, that driveway, that corner, I talked to the engineer at VDOT here at Outposts on Route 2, and William, he said he would get out and look at it and they would see.
Yeah,
they
those
can
curbs
fix
are
it.
crumbling really bad between,
Yeah,
in
right.
that alley area.
Yeah, but I did call him about it, so
Okay.
he's supposed to be getting out there and look at that.
Yeah, also right there at the front door going into the hardware store, as you're going in, there's a slab right there, and then there's another slab right there at the door line that's about an inch higher
Okay.
than the rest of the sidewalk.
All right.
That's what Bonnie almost tripped and fell on the other day,
Well,
or last month.
If you see him out there, direct him over that way.
Okay.
But he should be out there anytime now.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Josh. All right, next we have the police. Anybody have any questions for his service? Chief, you got anything you want to add?
No, sir, I don't have anything. I would like to thank everybody for joining us last night with National Night Out. I think it was a good success.
Yeah, it was a
It
good
was a
turnout.
fun time.
Very nice. Like I was commenting that a few years ago, we had the church Shiloh, I think, had their van out and they got advertised through their church and brought a bunch of people in. I'd like to see that maybe next year. I don't know how you can go to the churches and get them and see if they can do something like that.
Well, I know the girls in the office donated a lot of their time, and there
Yeah.
was other citizens that donated as well. And
Yep.
we have a few more ideas for next year.
Great. Well, it gets better as time. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. All right, town treasurer and finance. Ms. Jackie Nance. Anybody have any questions for her, or you have any comments you'd like to say?
Well, I guess I got a quick one. I just want to thank you again for helping with some of that data that I was just talking about that I'll share with y'all later. Thanks.
For the printouts we got of every debt that we have, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Jackie. Town administration monthly report.
Happy to answer any questions.
All right. Hearing none, move on to the consent agendas. Did everybody get a chance to look it over and make any comments
Yeah, I got to pull the minutes.
on,
Yeah.
what are they, on the minutes or the bills?
The minutes, 2 corrections.
All
Got to
right.
pull it.
All right, do I have a, that's what I'm gonna do. I kind of figured that out myself. Duh. Trying to do that. All right, so item number 10. What corrections do you need to have, Jeff?
All right, 2 of them. One, okay, if everybody's on there, let me go find it again. It was the motions to, okay, yeah, page 2 or 16, depending on how you want to look at it. But it was the roll call vote for adding item number 9 onto the agenda. You have Ms. Coyle and my votes backwards. And the second one,
You were
I was a no.
no?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and then further on page 6 or 20, depending on how you look at it, there's a lot here. Now, I know that this kind of stuff is difficult for the person doing the minutes to tabulate, so I get some of the vagueness in this, but council discussed the following. There's only one that I want to modify, and that's, I don't know, 3/4 down to the bottom. The part that says estimate water usage of 468,000 gallons per day. I think that's kind of misleading and kind of scary. The point of that number was that there is a possibility if every single worst case scenario thing were to grow out, it could be up to that. So maybe just changing that to water usage could scale up to.
Can we change that on an assumption, or do we have to keep it like it is because that's the way they wrote it down when they recorded it? I mean, can we?
Well, that's not what was said.
Can we change? I'm not saying it. It's not. That doesn't sound like what you're saying. So that like you want to modify it. So are we modifying, or are we actually changing what you're supposed to be?
This is all through when I did all that discussion that I had at the time. Most of this is taken from the slides I was talking about. And I did not say that our water usage is 468,000 gallons a day.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
I think maybe if you could work with the clerk to type out what you think is more accurate, and then we just approve the minutes next month.
I'm fine with
And that way
that.
people have a chance to review it. Yeah.
Okay.
And I got one myself. On the first page, I need to be added as the member present to the meeting.
All right, so minutes will be done next month. Item number 11. Do I have a motion to accept consent agenda item 11 as it is?
So moved.
I got a
Second.
first by Jeff, second by Arthur. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Hearing none, passes unanimously. Okay, no unfinished business. Moving on to new business. Request to schedule public hearing on comprehensive plan amendment of Chapter 9 land use. Do I hear a motion on that?
Yeah, I moved to schedule the public hearing.
Do I have a second? Do I have any discussion on it? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All right, ayes have it. 13, request to schedule public hearing for rezoning application of 133 Chase Street.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
All right, I got a motion by Jeff, second by Arthur. All right, Randy. All right, Randy. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Hearing none, it passed unanimously. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? Got a motion by Randy, I got a second by Deborah. All in favor say aye. We're out of here. Thank you, people. Good job.